All right. So thank you so much, and I'm just going to open it up. If you feel you can enunciate and have that powerful voice without a microphone, you're more than welcome. If not, we have the ability to run the microphone to you. So, anybody want to start us off? July.
Hi there. Hi, Scott. I'm July from State of the Bay, and something that our volunteers are always asking is, because we do have a lot of trash coming in through the stormwater system, like, can we do those, those big nets or those trash catchers? So I'm wondering how that's working in California, and like what do you do with all that waste? Because there's a lot of natural items in there too.
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't actually have a simple database of trash, so we don't know entirely how effective these trash control devices actually are. But just based on anecdotes from the municipalities, it seems like most of the approved full capture devices are pretty effective. And I can connect you with the resources for that. There's many different devices that one can use that are dependent on each individual watershed for all that.
I'm Mary Lowe from ecori.org. This question is probably for Jed, but maybe not. Mary Lowe from ecori.org. This is a rant. This, guys, is a question.
Thank you for warning us.
I'm concerned about what I see as a lack of public education. I think the illustration I draw is back in 1960, which I remember. No one had any idea that tobacco was bad for you. And then public education just blew up the situation, and now we know that. And now we know that tobacco is bad for you. I'm wondering, where is the public education to just simply make people constantly aware of the waste of plastic, even say a grocery store, and what steps they can take to just take personal action to change that.
It's a good rant, a good question, and feel free to jump in if you guys have thoughts. I mean, there are certainly groups who are doing it. Most of the groups that I work with are doing public education in some way, shape, or form to help people get their head around the plastic problem. I think there's a lot of awareness and understanding that there's a global plastics crisis, both globally and locally. I think one of our challenges, to be frank, is that among people who care about the environment and environmental issues, climate change is the big issue of the day. Right? There's a lot of focus and discussion of climate change, and I think in some ways that kind of sucks all the air out of the room and doesn't leave as much space to focus on the plastics crisis. If we didn't have climate change, the plastic crisis would be the big environmental issue of the day. But I think in some ways plastics are sort of forced to play second fiddle, to climate change just because of the significance of the scope of that problem. So sometimes it's hard competing, for bandwidth, limited bandwidth, when you have a climate crisis going on at the same time. I don't know if you guys have thoughts.
So actually a little bit of a different perspective on this. So based on the literature, we know that plastic pollution is, in the layperson's mind, the number one threat to the oceans. Even though if you ask the experts, they would say it's habitat loss and many other things. And so the public is relatively aware of the issue, but I don't believe that they have the choice to do much about it, other than not littering. If you ask someone to consume less plastic, they're going to ask how much money is that going to cost? It's virtually impossible. And so what we can do from the policy side is make it easier for people to actually get things that are not including, but also on the consumer side, make sure that I understand what those solutions actually are. And one of the ways I've seen this biodegradable or not. And so there's a little increase. Any like paper cup that has a plastic liner has a little dead sea turtle right on the top. And it's mandated by the government. There's a little dead sea turtle. It's kind of cute actually. But it just says like, don't put this in the ocean, don't litter this, and it's like a reminder. Like, I mean, that's something that we do for tobacco, right? For smoking. Say smoking kills, like, right on the package. So that could be something that a municipality could do.
My question is for Scott. I'm Sushant. I'm with the investigator Watershed. First of all, kudos to all the amazing work you guys are doing. The rest, and you guys are setting the benchmark for the whole country. My question is, how are you guys quantifying the trash that's been collected from different? You mentioned you use different devices in collecting trash, and are you guys quantifying these trash? And you also mentioned using AI in categorizing cash, right? But when trash gets collected in a capture device, there are layers of trash. There are some stuff that floats, but there are some stuff that basically sinks down. How is the AI playing the role in capturing those debris?
So, yeah, we don't actually collect data on the trash capture devices and what they're collecting. Really unfortunate, honestly, because it's a missed opportunity. But we do collect data on what's happening in the environment, like where we're finding litter. So that's what we're using AI for.
All right, we have time for about 2 more questions. 2 more questions.
Hi, my name is Regent. This question is for Rebecca. Very great presentation, and I'm sure I got much more out of it than just the gummy bears. But well, that's what I wanted to ask about. Well, it's kind of like a comment, and if you had any more, you can tell me about it. That would be great. But I noticed one of your slides that had a German company that was producing plastics, and it was the gummy company, GUMMI, and it reminded me about. Maybe about a couple of years ago, I was with a friend and we were eating gummy bears, and he was like, "You're eating gas," and I was like, "I'm eating gas." I just thought it was kind of a crazy thing to say. But then looking at that and realizing that there's like some sort of properties in gummy bears that are related to plastics. I guess all I'm saying is it just struck me how it's something as innocent looking as gummy bears, it can actually have like connections to plants that were creating all these toxins and such. So it almost makes me wonder if some of those toxins, I guess slight little traces, must probably be in the gummy bears.
I think that was probably the German name for the company that was manufacturing celluloid in the 1880s. I don't know the association with gummy bear as we would call it. Though Germany does make excellent gummy bears. But I don't know what's in them in terms of, I don't know of any historical association with celluloid production, which is what that factory was making. Which is like either paper pulp or maybe some cotton remnants that were kind of juiced and solidified and then reconstituted into a solid and molded. But now I'm wondering if there's a rabbit hole. No, I don't think there's any association. I just think that's the German name for that particular company. Let's look up what gummy means in German.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna look into it more. And the ingredients do have something like I don't know all those words, but it's something like one of those polypropylene, something like there's something like that in gummy bears.
I can say, because I have done a lot of work with butadiene rubber, that sometimes it is an ingredient in chewing gum. So there are some regular formulations in chewing gum, but I don't know about gummy bears.
Okay.
But thank you for your question.
All right, so our last question in the back. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna with Limestone. I'm beautiful Scott. I was just curious. One of the things I always try to do is change behavior. Did I understand correctly? Water bottles have 3 times the amount of microplastics as regular tap water. That sounds like a good little thing to promote and get people thinking.
All right, thank you. So I'm one last round of applause for our first round. Thank you. So now we are going to move on to our second round, which is, I don't have my agenda, so I'm going to go with my hat. Where are we finding plastic in the region? So I'm going to ask that panelist to come make sure we're up in the front. And I am going to introduce Martin Bide, who is our next speaker. All right, so Martin Bide, he actually retired from URI in 2021. Woo! After working for nearly 30 years in the textile, fashion merchandising, and design programs at the University of Rhode Island. He has conducted research on pollution prevention, medical textiles, dye application analysis, textile history. Basically, he's developed this environmental research on our clothing in our environment. And that's an important piece, as Scott mentioned here earlier, that textiles are in our clothing and they're getting in our water. And so with wonderful projects all around the world, Martin's going to come today and talk to us about the role of textiles in microplastics. Here's a clicker.
Old textile people are called lint heads, so I'm one of those, and lint is microplastic. Nice to see everyone wearing clothes. We all wear them. And two things about them. Humans need to eat, they need a safe place to sleep, and they need warmth and protection as they move around. So that's what textiles do for us. And it's so important in our culture and our life. They predate farming. Taking fibers and turning them into these sheets of material that do this for us is very old technology. And they move with us. They go with us. Food doesn't, it just sits there and we eat it. Shelters stay where they are, but clothing has to move. That is a key factor. But it's more than just clothes. Textiles surround us. We walk on carpets, we sit on upholstered chairs, our cars are full of them. We sleep in sheets, we dry ourselves with towels, we tie things up with rope, and so on and so on. Tea bags, for all the tea drinkers out there, fibers. And like everything else, is that hockey stick graph, great acceleration. We use an awful lot of them. 100 million tons a year, we passed that figure in 2016. That's about 25 pounds per person on the planet. In the US, it's probably closer to 100. If you compare that to over a century ago, that was 3.5 million tons and 5 pounds per person per year. So it's going up way faster than the population grows. We, fast fashion, we buy too much stuff. And the other key thing about textiles is that they are small. To be comfortable against our skin, they have to be fine and flexible. Itchy wool, right, is only because it's coarse. So textiles have to be fine. Typical diameter for a usable textile fiber is about 10 to 25 microns. Your human hair is 3-5 times thicker than that, and at least 20 millimeters long. So these things are already in micro form. So if we're looking at micro materials like this in the environment, we put them in already in that form. We haven't got to take the weight for that plastic bottle to grind down into smaller and smaller particles. We get fibers from different sources. They vary from where they come from, and strength, stretch and recovery, other properties, and one that should be on there that isn't, since someone referred to how they sink or not in the water column, is their density. And they also vary in cost. And we use a whole bunch of different ones. I've got some stress strain curves there. The only thing I'll point out, the stress strain curve is cotton over here on the left, which doesn't stretch very far. Come back to that. So here's the map of the textile fibers we use. We get them from natural sources: wool, silk, cashmere, and protein fibers, natural cellulose, cotton, linen, and hemp. Then as again has been pointed out by the two previous speakers, we have rayon, which is cellulose that's been dissolved and re-spun as a fiber. That's where the carbon disulfide comes in. And if you look at something in the marketplace that's made of bamboo, it's not. It's rayon that has the cellulose regenerated with the carbon disulfide. So forget bamboo. A few of these regenerated protein fibers, not many, but here are all synthetics, all the ones we know and love. And today is almost all polyester. So the old phrase about king cotton was dethroned in about the year 2000. Polyester took over. Wool is this little tiny sliver at the top. Cotton is fairly consistent. You have a limited amount of land to grow cotton. We want more and more fibers. We make more polyester. Here's another version of that same thing. Again, these are all the synthetic fibers, most of which are polyester. This little corner here is cotton. Here's the rayon, and so on. And I'm going to have a conversation with Scott afterwards about his definition of plastics that excludes natural ones and includes ones that are regenerated by hydrolysis. We'll have that little argument later on. So we've got all these fibers, different types, and they're going to get into the environment. So how might they get there? So as part of the manufacturing process, as part of how we use them, or how we dispose of them. And I know this is a marine conference, so I'm sort of thinking about marine, but also in fairly general terms. So we have a whole bunch of textile manufacture, and it doesn't matter where we start with a natural fiber or with a synthetic fiber. It goes into yarn spinning, so we create yarns. We knit and weave yarns into fabrics. We take those fabrics and we like to wear colored clothes. I don't see a whole lot of uncolored stuff in the room. So we dye it, we print designs on it, we finish it because we want it to be wrinkle-free, repel water, be soft, other things we might put on there. And then it's cut and sewn into garments. And another key thing we've got here's the garment factory. I'm fond of pointing out that we have not invented a robot that will sew a shirt. We have robots that put cars together, so we can manufacture cars in the US. We haven't got the shirt robot yet. So all this is done in cheap labor places. And there's waste at all of those manufacturing steps. But these are in large-scale facilities, so any waste is easily captured. And if I'm making jeans and I have a whole bunch of denim, and there's little spare offcuts here, I've got a consistent waste stream that someone might find readily useful. So recycling is much easier at the pre-consumer step. And I can take those denim scraps and dissolve them and then make them into a fiber. So manufacture generally is not a big source of this kind of microfiber or fiber pollution. And I say that both generally and of course, we mentioned that Rhode Island has this long industrial history, a lot of which was based on textiles. And then it might be from use. So this is where our moving around, we're a constant source of small amounts of microfiber. Scott was talking about in the food. Well, I'm the chef in the kitchen and I'm stirring this and doing that, and there's microfibers everywhere. If you took your vacuum cleaner, emptied it out, and put it under the microscope, there would be a bunch of fibers. So ever since we've worn clothes, we've been shedding small fibers. This is not a totally new phenomenon. We see it every time we empty out the lint trap in the dryer. We have the laundering, come on to that. But the point I want to make is that back to that cotton stress strain curve, the fiber that sheds most readily, because it's A, short, and B, somewhat brittle, is cotton. So the biggest contributor to this short fiber shedding is probably cotton. Laundering. So this is the paper, as far as I'm aware, that sort of woke up the world to the fact that washing machines are a big source of microfiber into the aqueous stream. 2016, funded by Patagonia, who make a lot of polyester fleece fabrics. But it kind of happened at the same time that, from my perspective, that the big piles of plastic in the ocean became the subject of concern. So everyone picked up on this microplastic fiber pollution, and okay, what can we do about it? And the textile manufacturers are kind of aware of this. They study it. I'm not sure what they're doing about it yet. So we can put filters on the washing machines, as Scott pointed out, but whether we do or not, someone's going to get through, and it's going to go into the treatment works. It's going to be absorbed onto the sewage sludge, spread onto the land. Someone's going to get through, and it enters the aqueous environment. Okay, that's the use part of it. Now, the disposal part of it. And in some ways, this is a much bigger elephant that sort of applies and does not. So we wash the T-shirt, 50 times. It's got holes in it. Okay, how much weight have I lost? I've probably lost between 1% and 5% of its weight as down the drain, into the air, whatever else. But the 95 to 99%, where's that going to go? And we don't think normally of textiles as recyclable. We have a plastic bottle, recycle bin. Textile T-shirt, there's that yellow bin down the street. I can throw it in there, it's going to go to some more deserving person. So textiles are not easily part of the recycling scheme. And ultimately, right now, most of it's going to go to landfill. Some of it will be incinerated. And the euphemism, I'm not sure I like or not, is energy recovery. But once it's in the landfill, what happens to that? Is it inert? It's probably not going to shed microfibers much. Is it going to biodegrade? But I don't think landfill textiles are a big source of water pollution by microfiber. One little footnote is we're in Narragansett Bay. There's a lot of fisher people here. There's a lot of yachtsmen here. And you haven't got to walk along the beach very long before you come across something like this. So there's ropes and nets and all those things. They are the one case where textiles is litter. If you walk along the street, you see a lot of litter, but not much of that is a shirt. So textiles are not usually part of the regular litter stream, except in the marine environment. So a couple of things to follow up on this. What are we worried about, and what's the harm? And these, again, things that my previous speakers have touched on more deeply than I can go into. So here's our list of fibers. Again, mostly polyester and cotton between them. So I'm going to pick up on this idea of, what's a plastic? And they're all polymers. They're all polymeric materials. And that includes natural cellulose and protein. But I think California is going to give the natural ones a free pass. I'm not sure why, but they're going to give them a free pass. Okay, we've got manufactured polymeric material, which includes natural cellulose, which is wood pulp or bamboo or those denim scraps that we can convert to rayon with a hydrolysis step, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's just totally cellulose. Or we can make Tencel, which doesn't involve hydrolysis, but it's still a manufactured cellulose. I'm getting deep into weeds here, but there's going to be some difficulty in picking out what's a plastic and what is not. We can modify the cellulose into cellulose acetate, which is glasses, frames, and cigarette butts. So that's a naturally based material that's modified and probably does count as plastic. Then we get into the synthetic polymers that we're happy to call plastic, be they oil-based or bio-based. And this is where I sort of do some background reading on this stuff, and I see a paper that looks at plastic particles in coastal ocean sediments, and a textile scientist would look at this thing and say, that's a cotton fiber. I can tell. So a lot of what I've seen as research says, okay, well, we're just calling all these fibrous materials plastic. We have a mixture of degradable and non-degradable, and we have this thing in the middle that says it's compostable. We have a whole bunch of polyester and cotton blends out there that, from a recycling point of view, is a mess. And so there's whole bigger questions about this 95 to 99% of what we're throwing away. What do we do with it? That's a resource. So we get into the circularity stuff, which is probably beyond the scope of where we are today. The harm, again, we've touched on this, but I still sense some uncertainty. Straightforward ingestion by marine life, release of dyes and finishes. I bristle sometimes when people throw the word toxic in front of dye as a kind of a fixed link. The Global Organic Textile Standard is happy to have a lot of synthetic dyes count as organic. We worry about finishes, and PFAS are certainly in there right now. They're going to disappear very quickly, I'm sure. Wrinkle-free finishes have some formaldehyde. Silicones are good at softeners. Textiles are not associated with BPA or phthalates. We also worry about what's referred to as the Trojan horse effect. I'm going to pick up some pollutant and carry it out into the ocean, and there it's going to do the harm. Again, I heard that was a not very big effect, but then there was the bacteria that was being carried. And the other question, again, comes back to this difference between natural polymers and synthetic polymers. How good is the marine environment at doing the biodegradation of things that we usually regard as biodegradable? And the cotton lobby in the US funds this research organization called Cotton Incorporated. They're the people that fund the fabric of our lives. And they have some great scientists, and they've shown that in the lab, mock seawater, cotton degrades very, very readily. Here's another study I can share with you if you want to, looking at the deep sea sediments in the Mediterranean, and most of what they're pulling out are cotton fibers. And then, okay, do we want it to biodegrade? So if we're worried about the associated chemicals that it's carrying, ready biodegradation means those chemicals are released. So I'm not sure if biodegradation in this context, how good it is. So it's a very quick textiles 101 for you. There's lots of textiles around. There's a horrible mix of different types, some of which we are happy to say these are okay, others are not. Distinguishing among them is not easy. We're using more and more synthetic fibers. We have constant release of the fibers in those clothing, from manufacture a little bit, a lot from use, and some from disposal. Thinking that we can eliminate shedding of fibers from the textiles that we wear on our bodies, I think is not good. And I doubt seriously if there's a way to modify the textile to make it not shed, but will still be comfortable. As soon as you do anything to make it, to change the tactile characteristics of the fabric, it's not going to feel. And there's a lot of textile people out there who say, okay, what can we do? What can we do? But they will be helped a lot by saying, okay, this is what the harm is. So this is the target we need to aim at in order to reduce the damage. That's what I got.
Great. All right, thank you. So we're going to kind of change things up, and what we're going to do is kind of go through this first panel and then break for lunch, and then come back after lunch and give about 5 to 10 minutes for any questions for the folks in this first panel. So If you can't hang out after lunch, find them during lunch, or their emails are also in the back of the program that's available online, so you can go catch them there. All right, so with that, now we're going to call up Madison Burke. So Madison is been with Resource Recovery of Rhode Island for 3 years as the Education and Outreach Manager there. And so her cool job is basically developing programs to support waste reduction, recycling, composting, proper waste disposal, all the things that we should be doing here, and we're probably not. So she's going to talk to us about, well, what happens when we put those cans to the curb, and then what we can do to maybe be a little bit more cognizant of what we put in on our trash cans and recycling cans. So.
Morning, how's everyone doing? You guys hear me okay? It seems like yes, or I'm going to go with that. Yes, hello, my name is Madison Burke. I'm the Education and Outreach Manager at Rhode Island Resource Recovery. Just curious to know how many folks have been to our facility in Johnston, Rhode Island, just with a show of hands. Okay, cool. If you haven't been, totally encourage you to go. I'll show you one of the insights I have is how you can kind of come and take a tour of our facility. So if you are a typical consumer, right, a lot of times you are interacting with these different types of materials, plastic being one of them, of course. And so what we try to do is we try to help Rhode Islanders figure out what to do with all of their stuff when they're done with it, right? So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing here in Rhode Island and the educational programs and resources that we have as well. So just a little bit about Resource Recovery, if you're not familiar with us. We are quasi-public, so we were set up by the state to do the work of the state, but we are not an actual department of the state. We own and operate Rhode Island Central Waste facilities, and I'll talk about what operations we have in just a second. Our everyday mission is to provide safe, environmentally compliant, clean, and affordable solid waste and recycling services to the Rhode Island community. So that's our end goal of each and every day. We are not the ones that are collecting the trash and recyclables, right? People are probably familiar with that. It's the sanitation trucks that are collecting your trash and recyclables, and then they're bringing it to our facility in Johnston. And we don't enforce the trash and recycling laws. We are not an enforcement agency. It's really the responsibility of the Department of Environmental Management. So we have 5 main operations at our facility in Johnston. The first and possibly the most prominent is the central landfill. Then we have our materials recycling facility, or for short. We have our Eco Depot for household hazardous waste, which is a free program that we offer to Rhode Island residents to dispose of their hazardous waste properly. I'm not going to go over that a ton in this presentation, but our website, which is listed at the bottom of all of these slides, has a ton of information about how you can dispose of your hazardous waste properly. We also have our small vehicle area where residents can drop off hard to recycle items that can't go in your curbside, in our cart, but there's another way you can actually have those recycled. And then we have our leaf yard waste composting operation. So to divert that leaf yard waste from actually being landfilled, we do have this composting operation at our facility in Johnston as well. So just a little background about our facility. This is just an aerial image of our facility in Johnston. You can see that shaded in area is what is going to be the landfill when it does reach capacity in the year 2040. So that is really not that far away, right? We have just about 20 years of capacity left in our landfill. After our landfill has reached capacity, we're going to have to figure out, the state of Rhode Island is going to have to figure out what do we do with all of our stuff that is actually trash. And so a lot of what we do, right, is we talk to people about, you've heard it a couple of times, right, the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. They're in that order for a reason. Reduce first, reuse as much as possible, and then figure out if there is an option for recycling. We actually add a 4R in there when we're out talking to the public, which is rot or compost. So really thinking about those 4Rs. So how can we preserve this landfill for the state of Rhode Island? And we can use the 4Rs to help us do that. So I'm really going to try to focus this down into plastics here. So what can and can't be recycled? It's a question that we get often, right? There's kind of 2 different types of recycling available here in the state of Rhode Island, right? One is curbside recycling, or maybe recycling at work or school. And so there's a suite of items that can go in your curbside bin. And then there's also recycling beyond the bin, as we like to say, right? So there are special programs that are available so that you can recycle additional items or partial recycled items. So a little bit about what I like to say, the kind of method to our madness, right? There are certain things that determine whether or not we can accept an item for mixed recycling. Recycling is, of course, a business, and so first and foremost, we need to have buyers. We need somebody that at the end of the entire process is actually going to purchase that material from us. So these things are really how we make the decisions of whether or not we can accept something for mixed recycling. So you have to have a buyer in place. You have to be able to process the materials. Is our materials recycling facility designed to actually accept and sort the material so that we can provide it to a buyer on the back end? What are the logistics? What's the volume that they want? What is the timeline that the buyer wants this materials on? These are all things that we have to consider when defining what is recyclable. There's competition, of course, as well, right? Like any other business, we're competing with other materials recycling facilities in the area, so we have to make sure that we are producing a high-quality product. And the economics of it all, we don't have to make money on recycling, but we do have to be able to break even, right? We have to make sure that through sorting and processing the materials and selling them in the back end, we're able to break even. So those are just some of the things that we have to think about that help us determine what's recyclable. This is Rhode Island's standard mixed recycling guideline. What we did is we actually worked with a nonprofit organization called Recycle Across America. Their goal is to standardize the mixed recycling label across the country. I'm sure this has happened before, right? You walk up to a recycling bin, the signage is different, the language is different, the images is different, and it can be very confusing for folks to understand whether or not the item that they have in their hand is recycled through that local program. And so we partnered with them. What they're doing is trying to standardize the label, make it look the same, so that way people can really just focus on what items are actually accepted. They actually, we'll talk about what we've done with our road signs, right? We've standardized them to reduce accidents. Let's apply that same logic to mixed recycling to reduce the level of contamination we see in mixed recycling. So you can see there are 4 different categories here. Each category does have a rule. This is the most basic. What we're trying to do is get the most basic information out to the largest number of people possible and have those folks be good recyclers. Maybe not great recyclers, but good recyclers. If someone wants to be what we kind of affectionately call a super recycler, we do have more detailed guidelines, but we're trying to reach the greatest number of people possible with these basic mixed recycling guidelines. So I'm just going to focus on the category of plastic here. So the rule for plastic recycling in your curbside bin here in Rhode Island is plastic containers that are 5 gallons in size or less. So that is it. That's the only type of plastic that can go into your curbside bin or cart. So if I had a plastic hanger, could this go into my recycling bin or cart? No, because it is not a container, right? It breaks that rule, so you don't want to put that into your recycling bin. The reason being, our Burke is not designed to sort it, and you can't find a buyer on the back end to purchase it. There are a couple of exceptions to the rule that we do ask everyone to follow. The first is no styrofoam, styrofoam of course being a type of plastic, but it is too difficult for us to sort and process through our mixed recycling, curbside mixed recycling programs. We ask them to keep that out of the recycling bin. The second thing to keep out is any containers that held oily or flammable chemicals. Those just coat the inside of the container. You can never get them fully out, and it can become a problem inside the car. So that is the general guidelines that we put out there for the Rhode Island public to recycle their plastic. There are, of course, additional exceptions. Again, if you wanted to be a super recycler, some of those exceptions are items that are too small, right? Plastic, even if it's a plastic container, if it's less than 2 inches by 2 inches, it's likely too small. It's unlikely that it's going to be properly sorted through our facility. It's going to slip through the cracks of the machines, not get to the end. Things that are the shatter-rated plastics or acrylic, something that's compostable, like those biocups that we've seen pictures of, or hybrid materials, all different types of plastics, right? Or hybrid materials that are maybe 50% plastic and 50% something else. Our buyers aren't interested in purchasing those items. Big one, is no plastic bags. This is the #1 contaminant that we get all the time at our materials recycling facility. It causes a huge headache because it wraps around our equipment. No plastic bags, no bags of bags, and no recycling inside of plastic bags. And the message we are always trying to push: you go home, tell a couple of friends and family members, don't put bags in your mixed recycling bin. I'll guarantee a couple folks are, or they're thinking they're doing the right thing by putting their food recyclables inside a plastic bag to keep it nice and organized. Those items are not going to be recycled properly. So keep bags out of your recycling. Now there are special programs as well that exist in the state of Rhode Island to recycle items that they can't go into your mixed recycling bin or cart, right, but they can go beyond the bin. They can be recycled through that special program. One of them being the bathroom film drop-off program. These are located at the entrance of box stores, retailers, grocery stores, pharmacies. It's anything that's clean and dry, any plastic film that's clean and dry and can stretch at least just a little bit between 2 thumbs. So these are your traditional plastic bags. They're the Amazon shipping envelopes that you may get that are plastic on the outside, bubble wrap on the inside. Bubble wrap can go in there. The plastic that goes around your toilet paper, your paper towel, all of that plastic film can go into these bins and be recycled through that special program. A couple of exceptions: no clinging food wrap, and no fertilizer or pesticides bags or biodegradable or compostable bags. Other than that, they can go in this program, so you can recycle those plastics in that special program. There is also a foam drop-off program at our facility in Johnston. We are the only foam recycling program in the state. It's a rather small program. It's only open to Rhode Island residents, individuals. We do not accept commercial foam. It's 2 30-yard containers. We have a monthly-ish pickup from our hauler. It does have to be clean and dry, and it is either rigid packaging foam that maybe you get for television, or food container foam that you get and take out, things like that. So you can bring that to our facility in Johnston to have that be recycled that way. The exceptions, right, are no spongy foam, no foam fingers, no egg crates, things like that, or packaging cans. Not accepted with that program. And we also have our bulky rigid plastic drop-off program. There are more of these types of programs available. A lot of municipalities will have a bulky rigid plastic drop-off bin, so you can always contact your Department of Public Works to see if that's available to you. But it's 100% rigid plastic with all the non-plastic parts removed. So you do have to make sure that if there are like metal screws in there, that you remove those metal screws. It has to be empty, never held hazardous materials, no drums of any kind. There are some size specifications. It can't be larger than a 95-gallon part. Has to be larger than a hard cap, approximation size here. So think about like your laundry baskets, your plastic shelving, those types of things can be dropped off in this rigid plastic bin to have it recycled through that program. Just a little bit about, where is Rhode Island's mixed recycling going next? Where is it going after it leaves our materials recycling facility? So again, just pulling out the plastic containers here. So only the plastic containers we talked about, right? What's accepted in your curbside mixed recycling bin or cart. 89% of those plastic containers are going to places like Alabama, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Georgia. 11% are going to Canada. In FY22, we did sort and sell just over 7,000 tons of plastic containers. So that's how much plastic came in through our materials recycling facility, was accepted by our program, could be sorted and sold, and was sold to a buyer that eventually is going to recycle that material. Just some kind of interesting information here. So in 2015, we did what's called the waste characterization study. So we took a look at all of the waste that was coming into the central landfill, and looked at what it was actually composed of. And then what we did is we wanted to see, okay, well, what's coming in that's really like residential waste, right? The waste that we as individuals are producing. And so we removed the things like the soils and sludges and the residues, and we removed the construction and demolition debris. So we just looked at that 56% in green. And so of that 56%, what we found is that about 10% of the material that was being landfilled could be recycled in your bin or cart. So it would have been accepted in that curbside mixed recycling program. 9% could have been recycled through a special program that was offered in Rhode Island. 14% could have been compostable at home, at school, or work. 2% could have been compostable at a large facility, and only 21% of that 56% piece of the pie was actually trash. So it really shows that there is a lot of opportunity for improvement, for diverting materials that really don't need to be landfilled. A lot of opportunity here for us as residents to make sure we're keeping those materials out of our trash. Just a quick plug for the educational programs and tours here. What we do is we offer free programs and services. We go into schools, community groups, organizations. We talk to them about how to recycle right. We talk to them about reducing and reusing, composting, what they can do really to reduce the amount of material that's actually going to the trash. And as Rhode Islanders, what we can do to really preserve that valuable resource that we have, which is the landfill. So you can find more information and you can take a virtual tour of our facility on our website. Little plug here too for our waste sorting game. Is something that we developed about a year and a half ago. It is Rhode Island based. You can see we have like the big blue bug up there in the skyline and the towers of Narragansett and downtown Providence. So fun for all ages, I would say. And really, again, we're trying to gamification, right, is a big topic, especially in education, in environmental education. And so trying to figure out a way, how can we kind of help people learn, but also have fun at the same time. So head over to our website, have fun playing the game, and it's specific to Rhode Island. And then just a little bit more in terms of litter prevention, in terms of the context of today's discussion, just a couple of things that you can really do, and if someone asks us what they can do to try to keep materials out of our waterways, right? Number one is making sure that we are securing all of our trash out of recyclables, right? We want those loose in your curbside bin. You don't want to put them in a bag, but you do want to make sure they're either in your cart or in your bin, and you're waiting to put them out if it's a really windy day or something like that, so they don't blow around. But just make sure that we're securing our waste before we put it out in the bin. Placing those plastic tops back onto plastic containers before recycling. They're too small, right? They're not going to make it through our materials recycling facility. They're also things that are easier to accidentally be kind of littered, right? It just ends up falling out of your hands. So making sure that you're readhering those plastic caps back on. Taking it the extra mile, bringing those plastic bags and film back for recycling at those special programs. And additionally, if you are putting plastic bags or film of any kind into your trash, what happens at the landfill is we have what's called the active face, which is where all of the trash is being deposited for that day. On a windy day, plastic bags and film are going to blow right off of the face, the active face of the landfill very easily. So we have large litter fences that are set up all around the perimeter of our facility. We have portable litter fences that are set up around the active face, and we have a crew that goes around and picks up those plastic bags and film. It is incredible how much plastic bags and film blows off the face, the active face of the landfill on a windy day. So if you can weigh any film that you have to dispose of in the trash down by either tying it in a knot or weighing it down by other means, that can help keep that litter out of the environment. Just reducing your use of single-use plastics in the first place, right? Really source prevention here. And then also just picking up litter whenever you see it. Trying to do the 50 of the day, pick up the litter and make sure it's actually disposed of in a proper bin. Also, one thing I was thinking of for one thing we do have at Resource Recovery is a municipal grant program. So it's a 50-50 match program that municipalities can take advantage of. And so if you're maybe interested in trying to source bins for public spaces, you could work with your municipality and try to source a grant for Resource Recovery that way to make it more accessible for people and hopefully prevent water from getting out there. So I want to thank you. This is Max Mann, Rhode Island's recycling superhero. He's actually a professional actor that goes into schools and he dresses in a costume, and that's how we talk with our students who are in elementary school. So Max Mann, thanks to you for helping to save the world by even having this conversation today. And if you need any company, please feel free to contact me.
Alright, so I'm going to admit I've been guilty of getting the nasty grant from my city because when my mom moved here, she put all of our recycling in a plastic bag and threw it in our recycling bin. So I got the nasty gram. And then I had to, tell my mom that she was committing a, recycling felony. Anyway, thank you, Madison. I'm sure we all kind of learned something. I didn't realize how much recycling we could actually do in the state of Rhode Island. And I was making notes of like all the other things I could throw in another bin to bring to the landfill. But we're actually going to switch and say, what happens when we're not good with our trash? And we're going to talk about the impacts of plastic debris on our Narragansett Bay combined sewer system. So, we have today with us Dracoules, who works for the Narragansett Bay Commission, and he's worked there for 8 years, and he's basically an expert at the sewer system and stormwater systems, which I don't know anyone who is. So this is super cool. He's also an environmental engineer, and so he's come here to say, what kind of happens when we miss the trash can and find our way of litter on the street? So, thank you, Chris.
I got my cheat sheet, so let's do this. I'm Chris Dracoules. I am the assistant manager of the Interceptor Maintenance Department at NBC. And today we're talking a little bit about NBC and what we do and the impact plastic has on our system. So NBC is basically a sewage collection system. We service 9 communities. We have a range of different facilities that help us get our flow from all our customers to one of our two treatment plants. A little bit of history. When this area was first built up, the sewer systems they originally installed just went directly out into the bay. They really didn't have anything there to treat the water or collect debris. It took them a little bit too long to figure out that's not the best idea, and then they started building treatment plants in 1980. And once the treatment plants came into existence, those plants unfortunately came to disrepair, and they just really fell behind the 8 ball. In 1980, NBC was created to take ownership of the Fields Point plant at Providence, and that helped them, bring the plant back into standing, start clean water. In 1992, NBC merged with the Blackstone Valley District Commission to take over their Altman Point treatment plant. So our Fields Point treatment plant will be serviced to the communities of Johnston, Providence, North Providence, Lincoln, Cranston, and on a daily basis we clean an average of 45 million gallons of sewer water. And our Altman Point plant, we service Central Falls, Cumberland, Lincoln, and East Rhode Island, and that plant does an average of 25 million gallons of sewer water per day. So our systems, primarily comprise of interceptors. Those are large diameter pipes. On average, you find us, sizes between really 12 to about 9 inches. We do have smaller stuff that's, more towards the top of some of our newer lines, that's 6 to 8 inches, and then our bigger diameter pipes that go directly to our plants that are up to 100 inches, 90 inches. Within those interceptors, we have really 2 types of systems. We have a combined sewer system, which this graphic is really an example of. It's showing flow coming from multiple sources. Your sanitary flow from your house, which is from your bathroom, your kitchen sink, your washing machine, and it also gets sources from stormwater, either being catch basins, yard drains, sometimes downspouts. Those systems, during wet weather, get extremely taxed and reach capacity. And within those systems, we have a structure called a regulator structure that helps throttle the flow down into our interceptor to allow during wet weather the flow to slow down and the interceptor to function at higher capacities for a longer time without surpassing and having excess discharge into the river. Sanitary systems, as the name implies, it's sanitary only. These really don't get affected by wet weather, and those are allowed to function at their current capacity during all weather events. NBC came up with a solution for to stop discharge to try to stop most of the discharge to the river during weather events from our combined system with our CSO tunnel system. This was broken into 3 phases. Right now, phase 1 and 2 are complete, and that is the Providence CSO tunnel. This is about 300 feet below the ground. It's 6 feet in diameter, and it's about 9 miles all together. This was designed to store up to a 3 months weather event. And it treats about, it can store 65 million gallons until it's pumped out and cleaned after every weather event, and stores about 1 billion gallons per year. Right now we are in construction phase 3. This is the Tuckett and Central Falls CSO tunnel. This is also designed to store 3 months more, and it should store an estimated 58 million gallons. Like I said, this one's under construction. So we live in this area, you've probably seen a couple of our construction crew out there. Right now they're digging the draw shafts. So NBC's main goal is to make sure our sewage flows from our customers get to one of our sewage treatment plants without any type of issues that could impact, the environment, public, or private property. And, unfortunately, we do get plastic in our system, and that is, stops us from achieving our goals. We invest a lot of money and time to make sure everything flows the way it should be, because we don't want anybody having to deal with sewage besides us. So what I encourage us to really, make sure our goals are completed is preventive maintenance. We use the walk through schedule inspections. We go around weekly, monthly inspections of our key facilities, and we really do also after major rain events, because like I was saying earlier, you have a combined system. During rain events, the system is severely taxed, and you're going to have a lot of issues that develop from there. We also do yearly cleaning improvement projects just to make sure our systems and pipelines are operating as efficiently as possible and flow is getting to our plants without any type of impact. We also review and calculate flows for all new construction projects to make sure none of our systems exceed their capacity. And we also use flow monitoring. It's a really interesting system that allows us to have eyes and ears within all our structures about actually being there. We install them within regulators, screen structures, pump stations, any type of vital key systems. That allows us to set parameters that will alert us to issue the elevator system before it actually starts to discharge off the river. It allows us to automatically go out and get updates about what's going on and troubleshoot and fix up before any issues really develop to be a problem. We're also able to review our data. We review 3 times a week and after our summer events to make sure there's nothing developing the system. And this is all about being proactive and getting to a problem before it really is somewhere where the public sees it is discharging out to the bay. Plastic gets into our system primarily from road debris and street litter. It gets pushed to the catch basins from the street sweepers and rain events. We'll just collect the debris on the road and travel down to catch basins and enters into the combined system for those catch basins. Even though sanitary one system does not get road debris into it, that doesn't mean the road debris gets into the separated stone line. That's different from utilities, so we have to ask them about that. But we get it through our combined systems. This plastic can get in through our system and cause a lot of issues for us. Either, getting wedged in smaller pipes, getting caught screen structures, and having other debris that flows through our system get caught up on it. We get all different types of plastics besides, water bottles and, the common stuff. Here's a picture of a plastic 5-gallon jug from Home Depot and plastic landing pots. We got those down our pipelines, section, columns, on our section to backflow and back up, and it took us a lot of effort to wedge that free because the pipe was in. It was just a little bit smaller than that stuff, so yeah, we made a couple of kids had some fun on one of our manholes, started throwing stuff at them because we're not sure how else that got into our system. So NBC has a number of passive facilities that collect and help us remove all this debris, not only plastic. We hopefully collect heavy debris and all out that flowable debris, so we get a lot of different stuff besides plastic. I recently was asking a question about tank facilities. This is one of our tank facilities we have. We have a number of these. They are installed in large CSO areas, so we have a lot of tanks coming together. So they're basically designed to have flow traffic through them right before it exits into the water bodies. These collect anti-type debris like plastics, leaf debris, anti-type organic materials, a lot of sediment. We change these out after every storm event. Here's a picture of one of our screening structures. We have these installed key facilities to make sure nothing is caught in our pumps or in any type of mechanical issue that can cause our system to go down. These are really good at getting floatables. We'll get plastic bags, we'll get bottles, we'll get rags, all that stuff. Unfortunately, sometimes it gets too clogged and won't allow flow to move through our screen structures, and will cause either our flow to start to back up, or we get some capacity issues that are not performing as efficiently as it should be. Here is one of our sump manhole design points. These sumps allow for heavier debris to settle out within our system and be collected at a later date. These are really good for removing rocks, sand, grit, gravel, all that stuff that comes more from the construction side that haven't fallen through our system. Unfortunately, floatable material like plastics and stuff like that will bypass the sites altogether and will travel downstream and impact our sites elsewhere. Here's a picture of one of our tunnels actually. So this bottom picture is 2016 Emeritus. Doesn't really give you a whole lot of perspective, but one thought that got pointed out was actually a styrofoam coffee cup. So you can just picture 9 miles of this just being full of plastic bottles. So like I said, our tunnels are designed to divert flow during overflows for a 3-month storm. So we're pretty much removing all flowable debris and impacting the waterways for storms. We do want to clean this out. The other picture is our bucket going down 300 feet, taking the debris and removing it from our tunnels. Here's a picture of one of our regulator structures that has a trash rack in it. As you can see, some plastic bottles getting stuff in there. Our regulators, like I said earlier, are a way for us to control flow down through interceptors. They accomplish this by having a smaller connector diameter pipe, so they'll go from like a 36-inch down to a 10-inch, and then back to like an 8-inch pipe. Those are very susceptible to having plastic come through, especially bottles. They get wedged through them sideways, and then when they get wedged, other debris comes and collects on them and causes an issue. The graph below is from our flow monitoring project. You can see we have a wet weather event that happened that had increased flow through it, and the flow returned to normal. And a couple days later, we had a normally high water level. It wasn't high enough to cause any discharge issues, but we responded anyway. We went out there and cleaned the site, and what we found was one plastic bottle being wedged in the bottom of the trash rack that had other debris accumulated on it and caused the whole entire system to start to back up. So we try to always get there and clean that stuff and remove it before it actually starts to come to the waterways. Here's a picture from one of our cleaning contracts. Like I said, we constantly have second cleaning, line cleaning, other improvement contracts going down, trying to make sure our system is operating as efficient as possible and trying to improve. Where we in a place where we don't have issues, a lot of plastic debris likes to settle and siphon in the structures, because siphon operates by having a full bed of water before it dives down to the floor point. So anything that floats will get caught into that structure. It can accumulate and cause issues with the debris, such as grease and other material floating on it. Our sags and lines are where debris underneath our pipe settle, and our pipe actually sagging down a little bit, and it will cause stuff to accumulate in that section, which can compromise our capacity for the line segment and how efficiently we get flow. All these areas, there's something where plastic accumulates, so we always target in contracts to hit those areas. This is a picture just from one day cleaning non-stop the Providence Mall homeless segment. They can clean that for a year straight, just keep on. Once we're done removing all of this, you can sit there and see more plastic balls start coming down. So it's a battle. So NBC spends a lot of time and money to try our best to make sure we remove any and all plastic before when it comes our way, we actually have it discharged out to the river. We're always trying to develop new ways to remove plastic, and we do a new type of construction, new type of project. We always have forefront in our mind, how can we make sure that we're not impacting waterways, we're impacting public health, and how to make the bay better and safer for everybody. We're a unique utility to the fact that all our outfalls have a phone number on it. Who owns it? You see something, there's a direct line to call and talk to us about it. So we don't want that happening. We live in the bay, we use the bay too, we want to clean. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Chris. So, I bet you that was news to a lot of people sitting here. Me too. And actually brought up a thing that reminded me to tell you all. So out in the parking lot of this building, which I think is this way, forgive me if I'm wrong, this is
not my usual haunt. There is the trash trailer, which was constructed by the Coastal Resources Management Center Council in response to their dredging of the Providence Place Water Place Park, which is kind of near where Chris was talking about with all those bottles. Basically, they were dredging that to keep water fire, to keep Water Place Park water flowing, make it look awesome, and came up with a lot of stuff. The project went over, I think, by like 4 months timeline and doubled the cost because they had to stop the dredger every single time to clean it out. And so instead of throwing all that out, they created an interactive mobile unit called Trash Trailer to kind of talk about what's going on, particularly in the heart of our capital city. So please, at lunch, you need to walk, go visit. It's completely like self-guided, and it's super small and self-guided. It takes you no time at all, but that is the kind of thing we're trying to think about here. So, as we're moving along, you'll notice that your schedule says Mike Jarbrough is going to come from Safe Bay and chat. Well, he got called elsewhere, so we are lucky today to have July Lewis come and talk to us about Save the Bay's efforts with their shoreline cleaning. And so July has been with Save the Bay for almost 10 years now, and she's a volunteer and internship manager. She basically has probably been involved with mostly all the projects of restoration, seal counts, finding ways to reduce trash on our shoreline, getting volunteers and interns out, and everyone just loving our bay as much as we do. So thank you, July, for stepping in, and I'm going to let her take it away and talk to you about all of Save the Bay's students.
Hi everybody, it's great to be here. Do I have my mic in a good place? Pretty good? Not too bad? Alright. So let's see, let me try to know how to do this a little quicker. So like I said, Mike put together this presentation, so I'm probably gonna skim over some of his policy-oriented stuff and talk more about what I know, which is shoreline cleanup. So what it is that we're finding out there on the shores. So just in case anybody's not familiar with Save the Bay, we've been around since 1970. We're a non-profit organization dedicated to protecting and improving Narragansett Bay. We've come a long way. The water quality is so much better thanks to all the great projects in Narragansett Bay Commission, thanks to lots of, the Clean Water Act. And it's just so much better than it was at that time. But the problems that we're dealing with now that we never even envisioned then, and including the large volume of plastics that's accumulating in the bay. So let's see. Save the Bay, our volunteer program, we do a lot of things, but one of the biggest programs that we have is shoreline cleanups. Everybody loves the shoreline cleanup. Anybody here done one? Awesome, that's great. How about international coastal cleanup, where you're actually recording stuff? Yes, I've got some people who participated in that project. That's our big fall project. It's a global project organized by the Ocean Conservancy, and Save the Bay is the state coordinator right here in Rhode Island, and so that's what we organize. That's what we're doing right now. So for that project, we're picking up everything, we're recording it on data sheets with the Clean Swell app, and we're getting actual numbers of what it is that we are finding out there. So let's see. Now last year, this is our Rhode Island numbers for 2021, which is a quasi-COVID year, so it's a little lower than normal, but still, almost 2,000 volunteers out there participating in this project, 120,000 pieces of trash. It was over 11,000 pounds of trash that we collected. And this is with a very small group cleanups because we were still affected by COVID. It's typically more like 4,000 people who are participating. So here are some of our numbers. So if you're interested in, we have a lot more detail here. So if you're interested in our Rhode Island report, you can go to savebay.org/ICC, or also you have my phone number, I can give the information of my email for the information for the conference. So reach out to me. We have it on our website, all the detailed information. Here's some kind of summary information about where the stuff, the kind of categories of stuff that we're seeing. We're finding 26% of the items that we find are related to drinking. It's your plastic bottles, your glass bottles, your cans, caps, your straws and stirrers. So many straws and stirrers out there. Smoking is number 2. We've got a ton of cigarette butts that we're finding. We find those in the parking lot of the beach. and wrappers, cigar tips. We're finding more and more e-cigarette waste. And then we've got the food wrappers, like a lot of just the food wrappers and all those disposable plastics. There's plenty of other random categories that we find. We write them all down. Fishing, definitely on the south coast, we find more of that fishing debris, the straps and the ropes that we're seeing before in some of the presentations. And the growing category that I think is going to outpace smoking pretty soon is our tiny trash category. That's where we find where our volunteers actually pick up and record those little bits of plastic that we find, the foam bits, the plastic bits. And that is something that we see more and more and more. I've been involved in International Coast Cleanup since about 2007. It's been going on for longer than that. And the changes that I see, we've definitely seen improvements. I don't see anywhere near the amount of dumping that we used to. The appliances, the tires. We've cleaned up a lot of that stuff, the legacy stuff that's sort of been hanging out on the shoreline. Plus we have awesome programs. We've got Rhode Island resource recovery. We've got our towns and our cities having really good systems so that people have a place to dispose of those big things. So that's been a big improvement. But the plastics, guys, the plastics, they're building up more and more. So it's not just that we're finding freshly littered items on the shore from people recreating on the shore. We are finding it in the rack line. You might not see it so much if you're in, if you're in one of our ocean-facing beaches. But where our facility is actually right near you guys in the Narragansett Bay Commission, right in Fields Point, and when that wind is blowing up the bay, that rack line that is deposited on our shoreline is full of plastic. When we, cleanups are such a feel-good activity. People are out there, they're doing something physical and visible and making a difference, getting that stuff off the shore. It does make a difference. But when they confront that rack line, it's shocking, and they know that they can't fix it. We cannot fix this problem by cleanups alone. It's just, it's filled with plastic. So let's see. So there's a lot of questions that we have, and very few simple answers. And I'm going to leave it up to you guys you're doing a lot of great work on this. I encourage you to, and I want to sort of cheer you on. I want to let you know that as you're tackling these detailed, complicated questions of policy and science, and how do we reduce these inputs at the source, how do we come up with different materials, what kind of laws do we need to create, what kind of science do we need to create, I want to let you know that there's an army of volunteers out there. There are thousands of people out there that are doing what they can do, which is just picking it up and spreading the word and saying it's not okay to trash today, and it's not okay to let these plastics out into our environment. So I just want to let you know that there's a ton of people who have your backs and are cheering you on as you're working towards better solutions, because they're creating a better solution too. They know that they can't fix it with cleanups alone. So they are really advocating for you guys, and they're behind you all the way. And I do believe, and they believe that with working together, we are going to come up with some solutions so that we don't see in our rack line of all natural materials tons and tons and tons of plastics. So I think I know that we're a little behind. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to have lunch. So I think I'm going to just wrap it up with that. Email me any questions. And thank you guys so much for being a part of the solution.
Okay, so thank you, July. So that is the local challenges that we're seeing. There's this upstream and downstream impacts. But what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to shift gears to the neighbors to our north. And I am going to welcome Sushant Bajracharya, excuse me, to here. So he is the Urban Waters Ambassador who joined the Mystic River Watershed Association in August 2021. And his role is to identify, build, and maintain collaborative strategic partnerships with federal state agencies, municipalities, nonprofits, community groups, basically everybody. So he operates kind of like we do at MVP and kind of like they do at Save the Bay and Mix the Best of both worlds. So if you notice, the Mystic River is not in Narragansett Bay Watershed, and I brought him here to tell us what a local group is taking on and how maybe we can model some of the trash-free Mystic initiative. So thank you, Sushant, for doing this.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'm kind of nervous. This is my first presentation after COVID, like in 2 years. Why did we become nervous? So, Sushant Bajracharya, I'm the Urban Waters Ambassador, and also the project lead for the Trash Free Mystic Initiative. Before I started the presentation, I'd like to give you some background about who we are. So, we are a environmental nonprofit called Mystic River Watershed Association. Our mission is to protect and restore the Mystic Rivers and its tributaries for present and future generations. We work with 21 municipalities, and we have about 600,000 people in our watershed. Some of the areas that we work in is water quality, green waste, climate resiliency, education, restoration, and stewardship. And something that's unique about trash is a pollutant and a problem that intersects with all of these areas. This is a picture of the lower part of our watershed. That's like 150 years old. And this is how it looks right now. So what I want to draw from this picture is a lot of infrastructure development has happened over the years. And a lot of the problems that happens in Mystic comes from the built environment. So in our watershed, there are 3 main pollutants that we deal with: bacteria, phosphorus, and trash. I will explain it in a very layman term. Bacteria, Boston is a very old city. The infrastructure used to build our stormwater system, the sewer systems are very old. So with climate change, with intensified rain, when there's a lot of rain, our systems get overwhelmed, and sometimes bacteria, sewage gets leaked into our rivers. That's where bacteria comes from, phosphorus. So in a normal field, what happens is when it rains, it normally gets absorbed by the grants. But when those fields are replaced by impervious lands like streets, parking lots, and sidewalks, what happens is whatever rains gets downfall and gets stripped into the river, and when it goes, it collects everything along its path, still fuel and everything. That's where phosphorus comes from. And last but not the least, trash. Something interesting about trash is 90% of trash, from our experience in working with trash over the last 4 years, 90% of trash that we see out there is plastic. And the interesting thing about plastic is everything that you see about trash is things that we use in our daily life. How many of you here touch plastic until this time today? Right? So I mean, it's a problem that's associated with our everyday life. It's a problem that's associated with our behavior. And I will not be like talking a lot of trash because I think over the whole video you've heard a lot about trash. So it's like, so most trash in our ocean comes from rivers. Most trash in our rivers comes off the land. So when you say a lot of trash is coming out of the land, it's not that people are going to the rivers and dumping trash. Maybe 5% of trash that we see out there comes from our people, but the rest of it comes from either it gets blown into the river from open dumpsters, or it comes through the stormwater drains. So some of the most common plastic that we normally see on our teams are big bottles, styrofoams, plastic bottles, cigarette butts, straws. So over time, through our cleanups, what we have seen is yes, the nature of plastic has changed over time. With the recent laws and policies, we don't see any styrofoam cups in our cleanups anymore. We don't see any plastic bags in our cleanup anymore. The nature of plastic is definitely changing. So as a watershed organization, so our theory of change for plastic is we as a small nonprofit, we cannot solve the plastic problem ourselves. But what we can do is we can provide data that's helpful. We can educate people about trash, and we can basically collaborate with all the agencies in our watershed. So Trash Free Mystic Initiative is an initiative to tackle short-term and long-term impacts of trash through education, collaboration, and data collection. So I'm going to show you some of the projects that we've done over the past. This is a map of Madison, which is one of our municipalities in our watershed. All the lines that you see there are the storm drain pipes. And the main goal of these storm drain pipes is to drain
access water from streets, sidewalks, and parking lots into our river. But what's happening is it's not only draining the water, it's also draining all the trash from these streets. The picture on the top left is the trash boom that was installed. The river that you see there, that's where all the trash is being collected. So Mississippi River Waters Association installed numerous trash booms and trash traps in our numerous locations in our watershed in order to understand where trash is coming from. Just recently, the picture on the top was actually the boom there was installed by one of our volunteers who initiated and was so passionate about trash. So because of her, we were able to secure a grant from North American Wetland Conservation Act, and we were able to have that sturdy boom you can see on the right. So the boom can collect like about 150 30-gallon trash bags at a time, and requires just 5 or 10 maintenance in a year. Similarly, this is a map of all the yellow dots that you see there are the trash hotspots in our watershed. And there we do routine cleanups. All the blue dots are the ones that were referred by our residents and our volunteers. So we have a program called Nominate a Park program. So what we do is we ask our volunteers to nominate the parks, streets, or parking lots that they see where the most number of trash is. Once they nominate a park by submitting a Google form, what we do is like we make sure that the parks they have nominated has stuff like parking lots, restrooms, and access to the public. So other thing what we do as a watershed organization is collaboration. How many of you guys are here from a from a private agency or from a tech industry or from a biotech industry? One person, right? So we tend to. So this is the thing that I want to put this forward is that people right now what's happening is people who are caring for trash is all people who are in nonprofits, people who are in environmental field. But the thing is, trash is something that everybody uses. So we need to look for a holistic approach where we are going and involving people that are not from our connection. So what we do at Mississippi River is we collaborate with all agencies in our watershed. We collaborate with private agencies, nonprofit, all the tech industries, and we do trash cleanups with them. So one of the things that we do differently in our trash cleanups is we have, we do debriefs. So when I say debriefs, what we do is when we involve these tech industry people, right? I ask them, do you know what watershed is? No. And then what I tend to do is we tend to educate them about what the problem is, why trash is a problem, because they would not understand what the problem is unless and until they are a part of it. So we tell them what trash is, why is it a problem, and how the small impact efforts that they put in to do a cleanup can help us solve this big problem, right? And so that's before the cleanup. Something that we do after the cleanup is after they spend 2 hours of picking up trash, we gather a big pile of trash and make a circle. And then we go ask them okay, what did you learn? What was the most common thing that you guys collected? And after collecting trash for 2 hours, their things are going in their head. So when then we ask them, how many of you guys picked up bottle caps or water bottles? Everybody would be raising their hands. And then ask them, how many of you have water bottles in their car? And they would be shy and raising their hands too. And then we swing back to them and say it's not their fault. That's how they are programmed, right? So trash is a behavioral problem. And the only way we can solve this problem is changing the behavior. So we try to educate these people and encourage them to change their behavior. One last thing we do is take action at home. So we ask them everybody to go home and take one small action in your because everybody there will be a decision maker in their family, decision maker in their department, decision maker in their organization. One small change, if you are doing a community event, don't bring plastic bottles, bring refill stations. Those are some of the stuff that we tell them to do, and that creates a ripple effect. The other program that we have is a visual trash assessment program. So visual trust assessment is a program where a volunteer is assigned a predetermined route in a particular municipality. And they go, and the volunteers go out in the street and basically assess different streets that they are assigned. And they would record the trash that they see and compare it with the toolkit that we provide. And what we do is we get all the data that we collect from them, it's recorded and are created. And we create a map out of all the data that we collect. So that's the data sheet that we have. So far we have done this program for the last 3 years. And the conclusion that we have received from this program is some streets are more dirtier than others. For instance, commercial streets, industrial streets, recreational, participatory recreational streets are more dirtier than the others. And what we want to get out of this program is, we are still learning about trash. This is our third year doing this program, but we would want to be confident and go back to our municipalities and tell them these are the streets that gets more dirty. So maybe you can enhance street sweeping in those streets. Maybe you can install inlet guards in the streets. That way we can solve the problem, because reducing trash like 100%, that may be something that we will achieve in 10 years. We have to be very practical with our solutions, right? So, education. So, Bristol Watershed takes a very holistic approach in educating its public. We made sure that we are incorporating people from all walks of life, like kindergartens, freshmen, like from all walks of life. The picture that you see on the top right is a diagram that was created by fourth graders. So that was a diagram of how they want to avoid trash getting into the stormwater drains. And that was the model that was created after. So right now we work with about 20 schools in our watershed, and we tend to make sure that kids know about these problems as they are growing up as well. Because once kids are involved, they will go back home and tell their parents. And then the parents will have to learn in some way or the other. Other program that we have is, as we work with 22 municipalities in our watershed, so every municipality has a different trash or recycle collection program. Right? So we have an interactive map in our website where people in a particular municipality can actually go there and click their location, and they'll be able to see the recycling and trash collection programs from their municipality. The last program that we have is called Adopt a Storm Drain program. So this is a program where a resident can sign up to adopt a storm drain and take care of that drain. So this is a program that we recently launched, and we're working with 30 different municipalities to launch this program. And the role that Maya play is, as we work with all these municipalities around, we want to make sure that the message that's going out there is consistent, like how to take care of the drain. For instance, during fall, make sure that you're watching out for leaf. During snow, during winter, watch out the road salt is not getting into the drain. So we make sure that we are communicating with our residents frequently through this program. And thank you for your time and any questions. If you require more information, you can email me.
All right, folks, so it is 12:45, and I'm sure you all need a nice big stretch break and some delicious food that's being put out in the hallway. We're going to come back at about 1:40, and I'm going to have the panel from this morning just kind of take a seat up here, and we can do a bit of question and answer. And then we're going to go on to our final presenters for the afternoon, and hopefully have more discussions towards the end of the day on how we can keep this effort moving forward. So thank you all, and we'll see you back here at about 1:40.